Hello, Craig.
Hello, Colin.
Since it is spooky season, it's October, we decided to do another pass at one of the movies we did cover last year. And Craig, you were not there for this episode. And
I was
mainly
not.
the one reason why I wanted to redo this episode was because at the time I don't even think I read the book at the point I didn't even start reading it. So we're going to be talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992. And since that episode, I have read the book. And also, I don't really like that. That's our old format now. I think our videos are a lot better now than there were even November of last year. So this will be fun because we'll talk about Dracula and I'll compare it to some of the books once we're done talking about the movie. Now, Craig, with all that being said, what did you think of the movie Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992?
I like it, but I'm not the biggest monster or movie guy, so I liked it, but enough where it's okay.
I think to me, this is the best Dracula adaptation. Now, is it the most faithful? It is not. And honestly, a lot of the movies based off of the book are not very accurate, faithful to the novel. There's some debate on which one is which. This one isn't really, but it gets a lot of the small details right. That's from the book, so that's important. But I love this movie. I think it's great. I think it's stylish. And there's one thing, Craig, that we're going to talk about that we don't normally talk about in these kind of programs is the music. The music is great in this movie.
Yes, because me and Daniel were more into non-traditional music, so listening to stuff like this is usually nice.
Now, Craig, what are some things you didn't like about this movie?
So I know this is a thing that's brought up a lot with this movie, but people doing the British accents weren't the best.
That's an
And I,
understatement, Craig.
and I know people really love Keanu Reeves, but I don't think he's a good actor. I'm gonna say, Colin.
It is a man himself. Ah, look, he's grown young.
I think a lot of people recognize that he's not a good actor. He's a good person, and he's fun to watch in John Wick, which is able to utilize his very limited acting skills. But yeah, I don't think he's ever been a good actor. And if you even watch some of his highlights, quote unquote, from the 90s, he's pretty rough, his acting skills. He's good in Bill and Ted because I don't think he's acting. And in John Wick, he doesn't really talk a lot. So he's a good physical actor, but when it comes to the acting part and saying lines convincingly, he's not very good. Still a good guy though.
Yeah, nothing about the person, but I feel like because people say that he is a quote unquote good person, maybe by
Yeah.
Hollywood standards, that therefore he must be a good actor. And
I don't think anyone thinks he's a good actor.
I've seen people try to defend him.
Oh, okay. Well, also, there's a little trivia, Craig. He said at the time, and I'm sure if he did give it his all, it still wouldn't have been very good. But he was just coming out. I think he did like 2 movies in a row when he did this, and he said himself that he was very tired, and that's why his performance is a little stale. Now, whether or not you want to believe him, that's up to you. But I don't think it would have mattered. But this was a very tired Keanu Reeves, Craig.
I mean, if he's tired, I don't want to. I'm going to call foul. I'm throwing my challenge flag on that. He probably was tired, but I'm not sure if that really would have made a huge difference in the performance.
And Winona Ryder too isn't really that good in this movie.
Yeah, and the accents aren't great.
But Gary Oldman, obviously, everyone talks about. And even Anthony Hopkins, I liked. He was good.
Yes, as Abraham Van Helsing.
Even though in the book, he's not as eccentric as he is in the movie. But still a good performance. Yeah, we cut off her head.
Yeah, she was in great pain. Then we cut off her head and...
So, what are the main differences between the book and the movie? Because when I actually was watching this, I was watching with someone who did read the book, and they were telling me about the differences, and she was saying that it's actually for the most part accurate, and she was like explaining some things that were and weren't there.
Oh, okay. So
she said for the most part. I think you talked to her about this.
So the biggest difference that's not in the book at all is the love story. And I say that's a big difference because it affects...
besides that.
Oh, well, besides that, they condense a lot. Because I look at it that the love story fundamentally changes the whole story, especially when you're translating it from book to movie. So that's why I consider it unfaithful, because it's one change, but it's one big change. Because Mina in the book hates Dracula because she reads John Harker's diary and his journals, and she's like, oh my god, this poor guy suffered. And then she doesn't come into contact with Dracula until nearly 3/4 into the book, when Dracula makes her feed on his blood. And even then, she's not sympathetic to him at all. She hates him. She's like, look what he's done to my poor John.
Okay, you have a point there, but she was mainly referring to everything besides that. Like, yeah, when he first came to the castle, they referenced the book mentioned the flame, and that was in the
Well,
book.
the blue flame had something to do with, I believe it was buried treasure on a certain night. It would light up. It wasn't anything to do with entering the castle. It was just something that was a little detail, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, maybe I have an unreliable narrator telling me
Also,
this.
in the book, too, they cut out in the movie is in the beginning, before Harker goes to the castle and he's picked up by the carriage driver, who is Dracula. I think in most versions they get that right. The carriage driver is Dracula because Harker recognizes how strong the carriage driver is, and then later on, Dracula does something of similar strength, and Harker puts two to two together. He goes at an inn, and then they beg him not to go because he's saying, "Oh, I'm going to this guy Dracula's castle," and they give him a rosary to protect him. And I believe the book, that night, it takes place on St. Hollow's Eve. I wrote that down somewhere, but the movie makes no mention of that. Because when I finished watching this, Craig, I did go through the book again just to all right, here, that's there. Because what this movie does, and I'm sure a lot of people who have reviewed this, we're not saying anything new, is that there's no CGI in the movie at all. It's all done in camera practical effects, which is amazing. Even some of the transitions they do, they have like that peacock leaf early on in the movie where it like goes in the frame in front of Jonathan and Mina, and then it transitions perfectly into the tunnel of a train. And that's very hard to do back then because that's all they have to manually line that up perfectly. Now it's easier to do. You can just put a monitor like halfway fade the monitor. So like, oh, okay, I can line this up perfectly. They have that really great shot with the journal in the foreground. In the background is a train and it's casting smoke onto the book. All practical and all so impressive.
Yeah, definitely you can feel the craftsmanship was put into this movie.
So one thing that this movie does get right, and like I said, this movie gets a lot of the small details right, is the character Quincy Morris, because in the book, Lucy does have 3 suitors, but in most adaptations, they condense them either into 1 or to 2 people, and they almost always remove Quincy Morris, even though he's the one that stabs Dracula in the heart. He's the one that kind of delivers the fatal blow. So the movie actually gets Dracula's death mostly right. Most adaptations don't have that.
Yeah, Americans getting it done.
Yeah, the Texan. I know a lot of people don't like this Dracula's costume, and I can't say it's exactly accurate to the book when he's old Dracula. The hair on the palms is in the book, because Dracula in the book is described as an old man with a mustache with red eyes.
It has no butt hair?
He has no butt hair. He doesn't have... Because I think they said his costume in this movie was Japanese inspired, and I think maybe they had a Japanese wardrobe person. They won an Oscar for it, but I'll have to check again who did it, but I think it was kind of Japanese inspired, they said.
Why?
I don't know. Well, I guess it kind of goes in with the over-the-top kind of nature of the movie. The movie is over-the-top. It's super stylized. There's some weird things in it that aren't in the book, or at least it's in the book. It's implied in the book, and then this one's just over-the-top.
I'm only shocked because he's from Transylvania, Romania. Why would you...
Craig, I don't know.
All right, I was just wondering, but I guess we'll never get a good answer.
No. Try to think, what else about this movie?
So just that costume you mentioned, that it's Japanese inspired, but are there any Japanese inspired flesh looking suits? Because it looks very flesh like.
I don't know.
Well, I figured you love this version of Dracula.
I do. I think it is the best Count Dracula we get, because all the other ones, like the Nosferatu, aren't really... I mean, Nosferatu shouldn't count because it's based off of Dracula. But all the other ones are, I don't know. They don't fully commit, and Gary Oldman fully commits into like the accent and the little reserved manners in a way when he's old Dracula in the castle. Like I said, to me, this is the definitive Dracula movie.
Yeah, because even he didn't have that over the top. I mean, I know the actor, that was his actual accent, but his accent didn't seem as over the top. Like, hello, I want to drink your blood, like how it was in the original.
I think he was actually Hungarian. Bela Lugosi?
No, yeah, he said he was. So he wasn't doing an accent that people, I guess, was iconic enough, and then that's what we say now when we think of Dracula.
Right. Oh, also, did you know that it was George Lucas's idea for Mina to decapitate Dracula in the castle at the end? Like
poetry. Why was it his idea?
I guess he recommended it to Francis Ford Coppola.
It's an odd thing to
Coppola is
recommend.
like, okay.
Whatever.
Get out of here, George. With your...
I may have gone too far in a few places. So you mentioned
Oh, yeah,
that
you go.
the big change in the movie was Mina's love story.
Yes.
I'm assuming you didn't like it?
Well, it's a direct contrast of Dracula's motives in the book. In the book, he just wanted to come to London for get more victims and like spread his influence. That's all he really wanted. But now he's more, in a way, sympathetic in this movie, where he's just like a lovesick puppy. And I think the book fully commits to him being evil, and this one kind of wavers, like, oh, he does some terrible things. But he just wants to find love. He wants to find his Elisabetta, and he's been searching for ages for her.
I have crossed oceans of time to find you.
Yeah, I didn't really like that change either, trying to make him more sympathetic because he's, by all accounts, a horrible, twisted person, and then trying to sympathize him because he lost his love once and she committed suicide.
Yes. I mean, the priest in the beginning, can he read the room? Why do you have to tell him that her soul isn't going to be saved?
I mean, he's not wrong, but
I know he's not wrong. I'm just saying, read the room, buddy. When this guy's having a manic episode in front of you, mourning the death of his beloved wife, maybe now isn't the time.
no, he tells it as it is. He's the guy who says, because you know when people say, people don't like me because I just say it as it is.
Yeah,
Usually they just say, usually they're very rude. That guy's saying as it is. He does not care about like trying to soften the blow. It's like, yeah, she's damned. Sorry.
So even though the beginning is not in the book at all, I absolutely love the beginning too, with the Vlad during his wars, and then the music crescendoing, that's a music term, it builds up to Dracula renouncing God, he stabs his sword into the styrofoam cross, and it starts bleeding, completely over the top and silly, and then he drinks the blood from the cross and he becomes a vampire. It's so great, especially the music in the beginning.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the at least one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, because that's when the music gets at its peak. And it
Peak
builds
Dracula.
up to that moment, and then he's like backing away from the blood pouring everywhere, and then that's when the music is so great.
And I guess speaking of all this stuff, it definitely leans more into the, I guess, Christian aspect of it, because did the book really touch upon this stuff all that much?
I don't think it did as much. Again, I read this like almost a year ago, so I don't remember the small details, but I'm going to say it didn't really touch into it as much. Because again, that whole angle of Dracula renouncing God is not in the book at all. In the book, they barely mention his backstory, and it's very heavily implied that he is Vlad. Because I have a quote. Van Helsing says that he's like, this is the void that fought against the Turk or something. So
The Ottomans.
Yeah, he outright says that. Because I think it's in chapter 18 he says that. Wherever it is. Hold on. Yeah, chapter 18 is on page 253 in my book. He must indeed have been the void Dracula who won his name against the Turk. And then Van Helsing talks about how Dracula and his bloodline learned magic from the devil. So I guess it's not implied, like the Christian religious aspect, but, you know, if he learns dark magic from the devil.
Well, then I know Van Helsing had the crucifix. It was like, he's like, get away.
Yeah. I would say there's a little bit, but maybe not as overt in the book. And if someone in the comments is like, well, how could you not remember? You know, the book is long. It's hard to remember all the small details.
And to that, I guess to defend the person I watched it with, she was saying that she read the book about a year ago. So if she forgot something, that's probably why.
Yeah, it's the small details are hard to keep track of because a lot of the book and movie do line up. It's just that some events happen way longer in the book than it does in the movies. Because what's completely omitted in the movie is Jonathan Harker, who is a solicitor. He goes through like all of his soliciting work, and they like make a timeline of Dracula's movement, and that's how they hunt him down. And Mina helps that too. She grabs everyone's journals and phonograph records because the book is, in case anyone doesn't know, it's written in epistolatory form. So it's all journal entries, news clippings, phonographs even. And she lines it all up. She puts it all together so they can have a full timeline of Dracula in London. Because Harker in the movie is kind of useless, but in the book he is very important.
Yeah, because in this one, he he gets trapped there. I guess he finds his way back, but then doesn't really do much. He just kind of along because then he gets not sick, but he's like
That does
weakened.
happen in the book.
Okay.
And his hair does turn white too, Craig, but it happens at different points. In the book, it happens when Mita is fed upon by Dracula, but in the book, it happens when in the movie, it happens after he comes back from being sick, but in the book, it happens towards the end. Okay, so yeah, he tracks down all of Count's property in London, because in the book, there's 50 Earth boxes. So this takes the group a bunch of time in the book to track down every Earth box. In the movie, it's kind of just summed up into one scene where they burn everything together, but in the book, it was much more meticulously planned, where they went around and they destroyed everything.
Yeah, really wanted to.
Well, they were going extreme, Craig. They were going to make sure this thing wasn't coming back. They were going to kill Dracula forever.
Yes, very, very thorough. Like getting rid of weeds in the backyard. Be very thorough.
Yeah. They weren't incompetent, and I guess if this was made today, like this adaptation, they'd make the group incompetent. But
Definitely.
They were pretty competent hunting down Dracula.
We'll also have like super genius Abraham Van Helsing, who knows everything.
Because the book does mention Nosferatus, and I think no one knows the origin of the word, but...
Like in the book or in the real world?
I think in real world, no one knows where the origin came from. So I think Nosferatu means like evil one. It's a Romanian word. The offensive one, it means. What else you got, Craig, about the movie that you like? Or if you have more questions about what's in the book and what's not in the book.
So one thing I noticed, Renfield was kind of funny because how disgusting he was. I remember him from the original 1930s Dracula. He seems to have a smaller role in this movie. Is that more how it was in the book?
Yeah, Renfield's not really in the book a whole lot. And I think he's introduced in chapter 4 or 5. And I think they have his age. He's like some 40-something-year-old man that's in the insane asylum. He'd never worked for... he's 59 years old. He's a lunatic in John Seward's asylum, and you don't really know much about him besides he likes to eat bugs and spiders to extend his life force. Because I think in the 1931, they swapped the roles with him and Harker, where Renfield goes to Dracula's castle. But we don't know when Dracula approached Renfield in the book. You just know he's under his spell. And then, yeah, Dracula does kill him. He breaks his neck in the book.
Okay. Because he was probably one of the highlights of the 1930s versions. I was wondering, why is there more Renfield? Him eating bugs and sounding crazy.
And I know they repeat the line, blood is life, but in the book, only Renfield says it. That's what he says that when he eats those disgusting bugs, and they're disgusted by this creep, this weirdo.
Well, yeah, that's why he's in the insane asylum. They were like, what makes this guy tick? What makes the guy to eat bugs and talk about all the crazy things he says?
Yeah. Well, it's funny in the movie is how over the top the asylum is. There's like rain pouring everywhere. There's people wearing like crates around their face. I was like, what is happening?
The master of all life is in hand!
And then I think John Seward takes morphine when he's speaking into his phonograph.
Why?
I don't know. That was in the movie.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was also in the book, too.
No. I was like, in the movie he did that. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, so people did back then. It took morphine because they felt like it.
I guess that's true. I think also in the book, I'm pretty sure there is 4 blood transfusions that they give to poor Lucy. And by the way, the idea of a blood transfusion back then is insane. How unsanitary and dangerous that is.
Yeah, I would not be wanting them stick needles in you.
I'm sure he shared the needles with everybody too.
I just can't imagine doing that. I feel like you may survive the procedure if you don't get the blood transfusion, but the blood transfusion itself is going to kill you because you're going to catch some disease from sharing needles.
Yeah.
That's gross.
Okay, so another thing that is kind of in the book, because I wrote this down because this surprised me. So right before Lucy dies, there's a wolf that breaks out from the zoo, which is obviously controlled by Dracula, and it smashes into Lucy's window. And Lucy's mother is in the book, and this startles her, and Lucy's mother dies of a heart attack. So Lucy has her maids help out and clean up some of the mess, and then Lucy says, okay, you guys are done. Just drink some wine, take it easy. Not knowing that Dracula poisoned the wine, and it incapacitated all the maids in the book too.
Oh. But he didn't kill them, it just incapacitated
them. No, it incapacitated them. So when Dracula infiltrates, I forget what it's called, their house. Lucy's house has a name in the book, and I'm forgetting. Oh, I think it's Whitby. Holmwood and Quincy aren't outside defending it. When Dracula attacks, they're usually by themselves. Like Lucy's is by herself. And in the book, Mina does see somebody, like a dark figure, far away by Lucy, because she does sleepwalk at night. It wasn't a giant werewolf man feeding on her.
Yeah, a little too obvious.
Yeah. Also, I wrote down the entirety of the book, Craig, It takes place from May 3rd to November 6th in the 1890s, and it can be presumed that it's 1897, the year the book was published. So the movie got that right, because it has the journal entries, which no other adaptation of Dracula does that, where it has the journal entries and people narrating. Because some of those lines are directly ripped out from the book.
But it helps give you a passage of time because a lot happens, and movies when they're bad with this, it makes it seem like everything happens in a day or two when things usually don't happen that quickly.
Like, poor John Harker essentially gets molested by the brides for a month. Poor guy.
At least he got out.
I think what I wish the movie did more was more scenes with Harker in the castle, because not only is that probably the best part of the book, but the movie doesn't really spend too much time with Harker because it's trying to set up Mina more. And Mina is an important character in the book, but because the movie makes the decision to have her be the reincarnation of Elisabetta, Dracula now has more of a motive to get over there quicker than focusing on Harker's suffering. That's kind of like a negative I have, is that there's not a whole lot of attention put on Harker when he really is one of the heroes of the book.
Yeah, and I know the beginning was good too, like all the creepy stuff Dracula was doing. Like, I imagine just going there and you're like, you live alone in this giant creepy castle, dude. I'm getting out of here. Like, I know people didn't watch horror movies back then, but if anybody's seen a horror movie, like, dude, I'm getting out of here. I am not staying in this creepy castle with this creepy old man doing things I can't explain, climbing up the wall. Like, I'm getting.
Yeah,
out,
in the book he describes it as like a lizard walk on the side of the castle.
Oh, that isn't. Oh, yeah, that was.
That is in the book. What's funny to me in this is that Keanu Reeves has the most blank face when he's watching Dracula do all these crazy things. He has no reaction. Besides when he says, like, I've seen strange things already. Bloody wolves!
I've seen many strange things already. Bloody wolves chasing me through some blue inferno.
I know his horrible accents and acting.
Fun fact too, what's also in the book that this movie does have is the bride's feeding on a baby. That is in the book. But the book goes even farther, and that Harker one night hears a woman screaming outside the castle. So he pokes his head out, and the woman's saying, "Give my baby back! Give him back, please!" And then Dracula summons wolves to kill her, and the woman dies.
Oh my god. What a monster.
So again,
that's the point you're making. Why they make him sympathetic? Like, eating babies? What's there to make sympathetic about that? That's horrible.
Yes, that's why it's strange that they make him oddly sympathetic. Because he's a monster. He's just like a terrible being. There's no redeeming him. He knows he's evil, and he just wants to spread his influence in London. So it's a little odd that, again, they try to make him sympathetic with just him wanting Mina, because he just wants love.
What do they mean by this?
I don't know.
Well, I know, that's what's one more thing. I know you liked the beginning because I remember you really liked the scene where he's climbing up the wall, because you kept sending that gif to us about him climbing through the wall, climbing up the wall, and the one laugh.
Oh, the laughing one I use in the video still. The one of Dracula laughing. Oh, also, there's one thing that almost no adaptations have, is that, so it is true Dracula does sleep during the day, and Jonathan Harker, he's had enough at this point in the castle, in the book. He's had enough of Dracula's nonsense. He takes the sharp end of a shovel, and he finds where Dracula's sleeping in the castle, and he opens it up, and when Dracula's sleeping, his eyes are open, and then Jonathan Harker actually hits Dracula in the head, and he makes Dracula bleed. So this helps later on when Dracula's younger. He has a scar on his head from where Harker hit him, and that's how he knows it's Dracula. They don't have, most adaptations don't have that little scene, because at least it shows Harker isn't putting up with it. At that point, he's had enough, and he did have every intention of killing Dracula.
That's interesting.
In the movie, he sees Dracula, and he's like, there he is. He's grown young.
It is a man himself. Look, he's grown young.
Well, it's like, how would you know? At least in the book, he could tell because there's a giant scar on his forehead from when he hit him with the shovel.
It's always funny when we go over movie to book adaptations and how the movie adaptations always seem to make the characters 10 times dumber or just dumber in general.
Like weaker, meekish.
Yeah, it always feels like the book versions, the characters are smarter, more driven, more confident, more competent. And then when you bring them to a movie adaptation, you have to make them dumb and stupid.
Is there any character you're specifically referring referring to from Lord of the Rings?
Well, I would not specifically Lord of the Rings, but other books we've covered. I know Lord of the Rings, how they butcher some of the characters. Don't even get me started on Rings of Power.
Well, Craig, Rings of Power isn't going to hurt you here.
Yeah, show me the doll where it touched you.
And also, what this movie does get right, of course, is Dracula can move about during the day. He just has his powers weakened. Nosferatu is what created that myth that vampires die in sunlight.
Well, that was also in the original 1930s one. I think he was out during the day.
Which came out after Nosferatu.
Yeah, but that was an adaptation of the book.
It was an adaptation of a stage play.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I researched this, Craig.
Because I was kind of missing this. I know in the original he had that creepy stare where like the camera would focus on his eyes.
Yes, they had the clear lights on Dracula's eye whenever he's trying to, like, I want to say seduce in the original book, but when he's trying to control.
Yeah. Didn't have that. I know they were trying to take this more seriously, but I did kind of miss that.
Yeah. Because also, another thing that this movie does include that a lot of adaptations don't use is the holy wafers. Now, this movie doesn't use it as much as the book does, but they still use it because Van Helsing uses it at the end of the book when he's trying to create like a protective seal around Mina and himself. Mm-hmm. They use it against... They actually put it in Dracula's castle, I believe, to like corner him almost. It's very effective in the book, and it's a shame that most adaptations don't use the wafers, but at least this movie does use it a little bit. And no, Mina does not try to seduce Van Helsing in the book. That doesn't happen. But Mina does have a mark on her head. But I believe that came after Dracula fed on her, and then she's like, I'm impure, I'm a monster like him. In the movie, it happens later. And also, Craig, you know what? You go first.
I was going to ask you, was Abraham Van Helsing as smart and... How close was he to the book versus the movie?
I would say he's pretty close. He's just not as eccentric. Oh, another thing, too, is that in the book, the suitors kind of go along with Van Helsing's plans with what to do with Lucy. And they only draw the line when Van Helsing's like, yeah, we got to cut the head off. That's when they push back against Van Helsing. But in the movie, there's like more like friction and tension between them and Van Helsing. But in the book, they have the utmost respect. And they only question him when he says, we have to cut her head off. And they're like, why? And then he explains. And then in the book, there's a small part where Lucy becomes known as the Bloofer Lady in news clippings. And essentially, she at night would kidnap children and like feed on them. So that was like the nickname they got because I think she'd be seen from a distance in all white, and they would call her the Bloofer Lady.
Because I always found, I know Dracula's the more famous one, but I've always found Van Helsing and Renfield the more fun characters. Van Helsing for just being cool, and then Renfield because he's a little disgusting creature.
Well, it's interesting how different adaptations treat Van Helsing, because this is probably more closer to his role in the book. But in most adaptations, they treat him like he's the arch enemy of Dracula, which isn't really true.
Well, I know why we probably think that. The Billy and Mandy.
Well, yeah, that too. But it doesn't come. The book never comes down to at the end Van Helsing versus Dracula, because I know there's the Christopher Lee movies where it has him as Dracula, and then what's his name? The guy who plays Grand Moff Tarkin, he plays Van Helsing, and it's him versus Dracula at the end. Because I think in that movie they kill off Harker very early on, but the book never treats it like that. It's not some old rivalry or whatever.
Well, the two movies that I've seen always make it seem like he's interested in Dracula because he's unknown, but also he knows he has to kill him.
Oh yeah, there's some of that in the book, but it's not like, I don't know. Some movies treat him like he's the ultimate unnatural world killer or something. I don't know.
Well, I always think of Billy Mandy because Dracula and Van Helsing.
Yeah.
That's what I think of when they talk about his arch enemy. And wasn't there that Van Helsing movie starring Wolverine?
Yeah, it's nothing like that.
Oh yeah, he's not hunting down Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I don't know who else he fought. I remember I saw that, and then I was like, this is not very good.
Yeah, none of that's in the book.
But from what I've seen in the two movie adaptations, the 30s and this one, Van Helsing's probably my favorite character.
Yeah, I like Jonathan Harker, but again, none of the movies seem to do him any justice. Because he's either sidelined like he is in the 1931 movie, or he gets killed off early on, or they make Renfield be the solicitor in the beginning and Harker's just kind of there. So none of the movies ever really do justice to Harker, and this movie included, which is kind of strange, because the book starts off with Harker.
I wonder why they don't seem to want to, I guess maybe different writers want to prioritize different characters.
I can understand maybe Quincy, you remove him or you condense him, because in a movie it's a lot of characters to juggle. Why would you have three suitors who kind of do the same thing, even though they're different, but all three of them have the same objective? So a screenwriter would be like, all right, let's condense, let's remove. This is one of the few that actually have Quincy Morris, Craig.
Quincy Chad, stay winning.
Even though he does die in the book too, like how he does in the movie. He gets mortally wounded.
Yeah, but he killed Dracula, so that's pretty cool.
Because in the book, Dracula doesn't fight back. They find his coffin, and Quincy stabs him in the heart, and I think Jonathan decapitates him, and then he just turns to dust. But I think most of the lead up is the same, like how it is in this movie.
Yeah, but I can only imagine the writer's like, that's not interesting. Just Dracula has to fight back, right?
I mean, I don't mind him fighting back in this, at least. It's kind of cool. He breaks out and then grabs Harker.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing either, but like I can only imagine the screenwriters like, we can't do that. This is not exciting at all.
A little anticlimactic.
Finally get them at the castle and he just dies.
Be like Gollum falling off.
Well, Gollum's a little different. We're not talking about Lord of the Rings.
So one scene that I actually really love in the movie is the scene where Dracula's feeding on Mina, and then they confront him. And they go into John Seward's office, and he's this giant, disgusting bat creature. And more lights, more lights! He goes into the corner. And it's that cool transition. He goes into the corner with his disgusting bat suit, and it becomes that shape of rats. The practical effects of this movie are just so well done. And in a way, it makes it more timeless because it's not going to age poorly at all. Because they use plenty of glass work where you paint on a piece of glass, you put the piece of glass on the camera, and it looks so great.
I do like seeing that behind the scenes stuff where it's just like models or paint.
Yeah.
It always looks, it looks good. It's timeless.
Because the book, remember we talked about earlier, the book and then the train going in front of it, that was like a 20-foot book they used. And they put that right in front of the camera. Then they had the train go in the back with the smoke. And then they had the light at the corner to go through the smoke so the smoke could be on the book or on the journal. Pretty cool stuff, right?
I know. I always like learning about this stuff.
And I believe the green mist, too, was done with mirrors. They have the set on one side, to my understanding, and on right next to the set is another set, completely black, and that's where with mirrors, and it's able to like I don't know how I heard it explained to me, but it's something like that where there's two sets next to each other, and then there's mirrors on the one to the right, and that's how you get that effect of like it looks like the smoke is going through it or the mist. It's very painstaking to do that, and it takes a lot of commitment and a lot of planning, but the final result looks great.
Oh yeah, like you said, you can definitely see the effort that went into the production. This wasn't something they put together like a Marvel movie where they just, we'll green screen it, who cares?
So going back to that one scene I like with Dracula's disgusting big bat creature, that is sort of in the book, but in the book, it's Dracula says some of those lines, line for line from the book, like I've commanded nations before you were born. That's in the book.
I who commanded nations hundreds of years before you were born.
But he says it to Mina. He's taunting Mina after Jonathan Harker gets incapacitated. He's not saying it in front of Harker and everyone else.
It's not as big of a change.
And he's not a bat creature. I think he's himself, and he turns into mist and he escapes. But still, it's cool when they use dialogue from the book into the movie.
It is an adaptation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Well, it's always funny hearing that this was the guy who made The Godfather because I don't know much about this director other than the fact he made The Godfather.
Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes.
He made all three Godfathers, Craig.
Uh-oh.
And to my understanding, they made this movie because his film company or something was going bankrupt. So they made this to help them out. And it was a pretty successful movie, Craig. Had a budget of $40 million, grossed $215.9, won a couple of Oscars. It won Best Costume Design, Best Sound Editing, and Best Makeup. And it was also nominated for Best Art Direction. Pretty cool, right?
Very cool.
The scene where Harker is shaving and he doesn't see Dracula come in is in the book. But Dracula grabs the mirror and he throws it out the window in the book. He doesn't recoil and it breaks the mirror. That doesn't happen.
You said the thing with the shaving was in the book?
Yeah, the little sequences in the book.
Yes, a little weird.
Because I know in the book, Harker starts to put it together that the Count is weird, aside from him crawling on the side of a building in a castle. But he mentions how the Count's breath is terrible. He's like, oh, it's so rank. He's got the red eyes, he's got the sharp teeth, he's got the hair on his palms, the long fingernails. And I wish...
The butt hair?
Well, that's not in the book.
I know.
But I don't know. I'm going to sound like a broken record because every time, Craig, we talk about a movie that is based off of a book, I always say I'd like to see a strict adaptation. And I don't think we're ever going to get a strict adaptation, which is shocking because Dracula is in the public domain. There are hundreds of Dracula movies, and none of them are really that faithful to the book. Isn't that shocking? What are the odds? You have so many movies, and none of them are that faithful. Because the one that people do say is faithful, Craig, is a 1977 BBC one. But even that one has some things in it that aren't accurate to the book. I think that one just has a very streamlined plot of the book. I haven't seen it. I do have it on DVD, but I haven't seen it yet.
That's interesting.
Because I think that one actually combined, I believe it's either John Seward and Quincy or Arthur and Quincy, but there's only 2 suitors. And I know in some of them too, they flip Mina and Lucy's name. I think they did that in 1931, if I'm not mistaken. Jonathan's married to Lucy or something, and isn't Lucy in that one Van Helsing's daughter? They do weird things in these adaptations that are just not in the book with these characters. They just fundamentally change things for the fun of it.
Well, that's what I understand too. You're saying how no one's ever given a proper adaptation, but it's public domain. No one wants to give, I guess, a pure adaptation is probably too boring, right? Let's put my little spin on it so it stands out from the rest.
Yeah, because towards the middle-ish book, it is kind of repetitive, where they're like, "Oh, Fairmina, we're gonna do this. We're gonna track down all the Earth boxes, and we're gonna kill Dracula once and for all." And they kind of do that for a couple chapters, but it's very easy to have a strict adaptation. I feel like you don't have to worry about any rights issues. But what would you call it, Craig? You can't call it Dracula because there are dozens and dozens of movies just called Dracula. You can't call it Bram Stoker's Dracula now because that's this movie. What would you call it?
You could call it the Unbiased Dracula.
Oh, it's the Unbiased.
Well, we are the Unbiased Opinion. We're going to make the most unbiased adaptation.
I guess that is true. What's also interesting, again, this movie gets the little details, is showing Dracula's powers, because he does have powers in the book, but a lot of the movies don't really show his powers, which is interesting, because he is a formidable opponent. He's pretty strong, he can shapeshift, he can turn to mist, he can scale walls.
Did he turn into a pile of rats in this movie?
He did. That was in that scene where he's that giant bat. And then he goes in the corner.
Ugh, gross.
Light! More light!
Light! More light!
Oh, I was just looking at my notes. In the 1977 BBC movie, they call the character Quincy Holmwood, because they just combined the 2 characters. Also, this movie doesn't end how the book ends. In the book, it ends 7 years later, where Mina and Jonathan, they name their child after Quincy. And then John Seward and Arthur got remarried. The movie doesn't end with that. It ends on that closure, I guess you could say, of Dracula finally being with Elisabetta. Again, an odd choice to make this horrible, disgusting creature sympathetic, but I guess when I like the movie so much, I'll give it a pass. So I'm like,
Well, it did bother me because, like you said, he's a pretty horrible person because his wife killed herself 500 years ago. Therefore, everything he's done since then is kind of wiped away. I don't think that's how it works.
I have crossed oceans of time. Not in the book, by the way.
Oh, was it in the book?
It was not. It was not in the book.
Interesting.
Well, because he only says that.
Then again, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
that's not
it's related to Mina. Again, I wrote it down. He doesn't come into contact with Mina until chapter 21 of 27. He does not talk to Mina at all in the book. Also in the book, I think Dracula mentions this. He mentions that he's a descendant of Attila the Hun, but Jonathan Harker in the book mentions that he's probably a descendant of Attila the Hun, I don't know how to pronounce that. I think it's the Zelskis. And Dracula mentions his ancestors, or it says, or him. He says, we, like a king would, fought the Turks, which is what Vlad did. So I think what's strange is also, when people say that, is he Vlad in the book? It's pretty clear Dracula is Vlad. Again, we have what Van Helsing said about he must indeed have been the Voivode Dracula who won his name against the Turk. Van Helsing flat out says that. And then Jonathan Harker says, yeah, he fought for the Turks, which is what Vlad did. So I don't know why there's any contention about that, Craig. It's pretty obvious that it is Vlad Tepes in the book.
I understand what you're saying, but to be honest, people watching it or reading the book, do they even know who Vlad Tepes is?
Maybe when Bram Stoker did.
No, the audience.
The audience. I have no idea.
I mean, at that point, I know what you're saying, but I can only imagine the audience like, who cares? I don't know who that is. He's the guy with the meme face. I don't know.
I don't think I have anything else for you, Craig. I think those are all the interesting differences I could come up with, because there are a lot, but those are like the main ones. Because again, a lot of the book and movie do line up in terms of events, but the movie mostly condenses it. And then, unfortunately, the movie removes a lot because it has to have time for the dynamic between Mina and Dracula. So that takes up a good portion, when we really should have been getting more scenes with Harker in the castle.
And Renfield, baby. I want to see Bubs.
Renfield's not in the book that much, Craig.
I know.
But I think what'll be interesting, Craig, is I'm going to try to refresh myself with Frankenstein, because there's that new Frankenstein Frankenstein movie coming out. And I did read Frankenstein, I think either last year or earlier this year, like in January. So it'll be fun to talk about that new Frankenstein movie by Guillermo del Toro, and I could tell you some of the differences between that and the book as well. But Craig, before we wrap this up, how about you tell me your final thoughts about the movie, and I'll tell you mine.
Like I said, I'm not a big fan of this or monsters or horror or whatever this was. So for me, I liked it enough. If I were to watch it, I guess I would watch it again maybe next Halloween, but I'm not itching to see it again either. So
right. To me, this is, like I said earlier, this is the definitive Dracula adaptation, even though it's not the most faithful. I think it's the most enjoyable. And I know Daniel and we did a review on Nosferatu, and I did not really like the new one. So when people talk about best Dracula adaptations, this will always be up there for me. Because at least this one, it may not get the overall story correct, but it gets the small details correct, which a lot of the adaptations don't get. So I think that has to count for something, like Quincy Morris. But I love the movie. It's great. So acting. Great music, especially in the beginning. And I don't know, it's great. I love the book too. But unless you don't have anything else to say, Craig, do you?
No.
With all that being said, this has been the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased except ours. I'm Colin.
I'm Craig.
And we will see you next time.